Hey, what's going on, Renaissance Lifers? Welcome back to Renaissance Life TV. On today's show, I'm talking about how to improve work-life balance as a man. Alright guys, so if you're new to Renaissance Life TV, this is the channel for men who want to take their lives to the next level. Each week, I put out videos on personal growth, success, and a different perspective on navigating life. So in this video, I'm going to talk about how to detach from work or how to have good work-life balance from a dad's perspective, from a man's perspective. And let's be real guys, for men, a lot of times work means like a lot, and it likely takes up a large portion of your life. And so I think, this is something that as guys we can often struggle with if we're not careful, like work-life balance. I think like statistically, and I don't know the statistic, but men are more likely to be workaholics than women are. And so I think there's a real need to like really think about this as a guy. If you want to have a healthy work-life balance, I think it's going to be something that we have to be intentional about. And so I kind of wanted to share with you how I sort of developed a work-life balance and what are some of the things that I think about to sort of keep me grounded and keep that balanced for me. So let's jump right into it, guys. One of the first things that helps me to maintain a good work-life balance is to understand my why. Like, what is the purpose of doing what I'm doing? What is the purpose of my work? Like, why am I doing it? And so maybe that's something you never thought about before. Maybe you just think of work as, look, I need to get a paycheck, so this is what I do. And maybe that's fine, but if you have a why, that can really help you to keep work at work and to maintain work as what it is and give it its proper place in your life and not have it take over your entire life, right? Because if your why is to take care of your children, then you'll realize that your focus ultimately is your children. Working is simply one of the tools that you use to support your children because you love your children. So your why isn't necessarily the work itself for the sake of working, but it's actually maybe your children, maybe it's getting ahead in life, maybe it's financial freedom, maybe it's a legacy, whatever it is. Developing and figuring out what your why is will really help you maintain things in their proper place and keep a proper perspective on everything. So the next way that I'm able to maintain my work-life balance is to have hobbies or pastimes. Like, this has done really well for me over the years, where sometimes, even when work would threaten to impact my life more and beyond sort of the workplace, having hobbies is a way to even indirectly or without having to think about it, subconsciously maintain a work-life balance. And the way that looks is when you have an outlet, then you have something that you're looking forward to. So let's say you work a 9 to 5 and you know that you're going kickboxing this evening, or you know that you have a gym appointment, or whatever your hobby is, you'll be thinking about that as that thing you're gonna do after work. So once work finishes, you're probably like, okay, you know what? I'm gonna go do that kickboxing. So I need to get something to eat and I'm gonna go do kickboxing. And so during kickboxing, you're not gonna be thinking about work. It allows you to really unwind, de-stress, and take your mind off things. But maybe if you just went home and you were sitting in a quiet apartment all by yourself, the things that were happening at work will still be running through your mind. So having hobbies or pastimes can really be helpful for maintaining that balance. Also because they help you to relieve stress. So if you've developed stress from your workplace, instead of that stress impacting you on your off time or your downtime, doing something like physical exercise or spending time with friends and family can help you to de-stress and then not have work impact your life in the same ways. So getting a hobby can be really good for that. The other thing that I kind of always try to keep in my mind is that it's important to work hard. And that being said, while you work hard, you don't want to lose sight of what is important. So what is important to you? Is it family? Is it friends? Is it love? Like at the end of the day, when you're on your deathbed, what is going to be the thing that you're thinking about? Are you going to be thinking about, I wish I made more money? Or would you be thinking about, I wish I had spent more time with X, with this person or that person? Or I wish I had pursued this dream? Or I wish I had traveled more? Like, what will you likely be thinking about? My guess is that usually you're not going to be thinking about, I wish I had made an extra $10,000 in my life. Like, that's not going to be a thing. Or I wish, instead of accepting $25 an hour at that job when I was 20 years old, and you're on your deathbed, I wish I really had gone for $25 an hour. Like, that's not going to be what you're thinking about. You're going to be thinking about the more meaningful things in life. And so one of the things that I'm trying to do throughout my life, especially as a man early on, is to start thinking about those meaningful things early. And so that really drives my decision making when it comes to working, what jobs I choose, what areas I go into, because I know that ultimately I don't want to, suffer or, have such a poor work-life balance all my life and then ultimately reach the end and hopefully then wanting to try to make the best of my time or actually live my life. So keeping in mind what's important is a really great way of maintaining that work-life balance. And then, like, I think sometimes, especially in America, we have hardworking people, but sometimes we forget that work is work, right? And life is life. And a lot of times, and I know this happens in some of the Asian countries as well, where there's even like where people sleep is at work, and like work is the ultimate thing that's like the most important thing in society. And so for me, like, ultimately work is work, and at the end of the day, like, life is life. Like, I kind of compartmentalize them and sort of try to keep them separately, because ultimately, like, you can lose a job, but that's one thing, but to lose your life is another thing. Or you could lose your job on one hand, but to lose your wife or to lose your child is an entire thing altogether. And so at the end of my life, like, I'm really sort of trying to live that I don't have those sort of regrets. Like, yes, I made money, or yes, I became a CEO, or I was a great attorney, but I really have nothing to show for it. My marriage is in shambles, or I don't have relationships with my children. So that's kind of like always present in my mind, like making sure that I'm not putting in more effort into work than I am into my family, my personal life, my spiritual growth, my physical growth, all those things, like kind of keeping everything in its right place and not trying to put work higher than life. Like, usually that's the issue. Most people don't have issues with putting life above work necessarily, where they don't perform. Most of the times it's that they put work above everything else: family, children, love, everything else, and then they find themselves in a situation where ultimately work was kind of their focus. And then so now that they're finally trying to focus on life or building a family and all those things, maybe it's too late or it's too difficult or whatever the case might be. So that's something else to sort of keep in mind, that I kind of like keep telling myself, and I keep present at the front of my mind, because if you don't keep those things present, it's really easy to forget them. And so, along those same lines, like, one of the things that I do is that I try to make sure that I don't take work home. So part of that is the type of job that I do, but also it's a mindset. Like, what happens at work stays at work. And most times guys are good at that, but in some ways it could be counterproductive to sort of bottle that up, especially if work is stressful, because then it just eats away at you. Like, women tend to be better at expressing, here's what happened at work today, here's my coworker did, and they want to talk about this person and that person, and they kind of let it off their chests, so that way it doesn't bog them down. Whereas men, like, we leave work and it's like, that was work, and it could have been like heart-wrenching or gut-wrenching, and we don't talk about it. And so the issue though is that it keeps eating away at you. So even when you're at home, it's affecting you. Maybe you're snappy now. Maybe you're having short answers, to your significant other. Maybe you need really like long times to decompress. Like you can't have conversations when you first come home and stuff, because all the things at work are weighing down on you, and you're still trying to process them by yourself, but you're not letting them out. So it really made a big difference for me when I started to sort of share what was going on in my day, what difficulties I'm having. Maybe if I have a large case, what's difficult about it. Like this case is really difficult because I'm having to prep a lot of like discovery requests, or I'm having to interview a lot of witnesses, or I'm having difficult witnesses. Like talking about those things really help to de-stress and kind of leave work at what it is, because once you address it, you can kind of leave it and put it in its rightful place and move on with the rest of your day, move on with the rest of your life. But ultimately keeping work as work, and keeping life as life, and not bringing that home, right? Not bringing that stress home, not bringing the negative emotions, if there are negative emotions involved, home, but kind of keeping those things separate will also really help in maintaining that work-life balance. So I don't know if this makes sense to you guys, but this is kind of how I process it. And ultimately, like one of the things that's in the back of my mind is that I'm not gonna kill myself for a job. Because ultimately, if it's the job, between the job and me, ultimately I prioritize myself. And that's different for everybody, and everybody kind of has to come to their own decision, or what like is the most important thing to them. But I had to make the decision that ultimately, like when it comes between work and me, like I have to take precedence, because at the end of the day, if there is no me, I can't work. If I'm not healthy, I can't work. If I'm not happy, I'm not going to be performing to the best of my abilities. So I don't want to be that employee that commits suicide, or that employee that has a stroke on the job, or a heart attack on the job. You don't want to be that person. So while it may sound like you may feel like you may not be a good employee if like work doesn't come first, but I think most businesses and companies that do well and take care of their employees is because their employees are happy. That's why they do well. Their employees are thriving. They're taken care of. They're encouraged to exercise. They're given time to spend time with their families. Because when those things are in order, you can perform better on the job. But if those things are not in order, you may perform well for some time, but eventually it's going to start to catch up to you, even in the workplace. And so that's something we don't want to have. I don't want that to happen to you guys. I don't want that to happen to myself. So it's just something to sort of keep in mind in terms of keeping that balance between work and life. All right, guys, so hopefully this was interesting. Hopefully you learned something, or at least it gave you something to think about, and in sharing my perspective on how to maintain that work-life balance as a guy, as a man, and as a father as well, keeping family and work in the proper perspectives. All right, let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. What does work-life balance look for you, or how do you maintain work and life balance, as a guy, as a gal, or in your families? What does that look like to you? Let me know in the comment section below. And if you're not subscribed, please subscribe to this channel, support the channel. I really appreciate you guys watching the videos, your comments, and sharing the videos as well. And as usual, I'm wishing you guys health and happiness. Until next time, cheers.